Hey y'all, I'm just signing in here for a minute. Just want to take a minute and go over this video with y'all of how I pattern bait throughout the season, what I look for, where I go to, the places on the lake that I look that have consistently held bait throughout the year. These aren't going to be a guarantee. However, they are places that I have used in the past, I don't know, 12, 13 years that seem to always hold some bait. Always going to be around those areas. However, weather and temperature, time of year are all going to affect them a little bit. But I hope this helps and answer some questions folks have about catching bait on High Rock Lake. So check it out. If you got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and try to help you out. Y'all have a good one. So we get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions about bait on High Rock Lake. So I figured, since it's a rainy, nasty day outside and not fishing and my job's got rescheduled for work, so let's do something beneficial for folks, right? So here's just the outline area of High Rock Lake. This is just the Garmin maps. I just want to take a minute and let's just talk about seasonal movements of shad, kind of where to look at different times of the year. So I figured that would probably help. So since we're kind of coming out of the winter season, let's just start there and we'll talk about winter and kind of things that I look for. And this information is going to be dependent on weather. Sometimes it's warm in December and January, and sometimes it is cold. So for instance, we'll just start kind of how things have been this year. So if you look kind of, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Obviously up here is the upper stretches of the lake up into the river. And then as you follow this down, we start working our way down into the main lake. Shallow, 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 deeper, deeper, deeper. So High Rock isn't extremely difficult to get figured out. Like let's say, for instance, the water temperatures were down in the 30s, 35, 38 a couple weeks ago. And for anybody familiar with High Rock, everybody knows that bait was stacked up right here at Flat Swamp. And it's like 4 or 5 seconds. All right.
That's gonna be about it.
I think we got some. You can see as we kind of zoom in, we get some water here that is in the 40, 45 foot as we work our way down here. As we work our way down here towards the dam, down here, it gets even deeper. This is the deepest area of High Rock Lake right here. So bait traditionally will stack up down here this time of year. It may be down here, it may be in the channel up here. It just so happened to be that this time of year that the bait was pretty thick. Sometimes it'd be 10, 12 foot deep, thick in 40 foot of water. There's several videos out there about making a tape net if you don't have one. With some longer rope definitely helps. So anyway, so primarily in a traditionally cold winter pattern, this is a good place to start right here. So another thing to focus on during winter months and cooler weather, I'm going to kind of zoom out. Let's go back into Flat Swamp. And this information is just based off of things I've noticed in different times of the year, different years, this time of the year. But there's also a lot of bridges in High Rock Lake, and for whatever reason, those tend to want to hold bait in the wintertime. Here's a bridge back in Flat Swamp. Right here is a bridge to check. Let's go, we'll fly over here to Abbott's. Here's another bridge. Holloway Church Road can have bait sometimes in the winter, just depending on how things are going. It's another place to check. Here's the Highway 8 bridge right here for folks that don't know. In the winter can be a good place to check for bait. So as I was saying, so here's another bridge to take a look at in the winter time. So let's keep moving, and then down here, this is Second Creek, another bridge in this area right here. In the winter time can hold bait. Again, just depending, it's a place to check in the winter time. So let's zoom out some more, and we're gonna go back to Swearing Creek. Another bridge all the way back in Swearing tends to want to hold bait as well. So let's zoom back out, and let's go back here to Crane. There's Goodman Lake Road Bridge. Can be another area, depending on how things are going in the wintertime, to check for bait. So we've kind of covered, this is just a kind of a wintertime pattern. This is generalized info, folks. I'm not gonna sit here and promise that you're gonna find bait in these spots. This is just some places that I personally will typically look, given how things are going in the wintertime. Now I will say, at times of the year, I have found bait pushed back all the way in 3-4 foot of water back in Flat Swamp. So it's all kind of relative to what the water temperatures are doing in our area, but those are good places in the wintertime to start and to take a look. So deep water, bridges, things of that nature. So now we're coming out of winter, right? So it's wintertime. For instance, bait has been stacked up deep down here, and now, you know, it's kind of back and forth. We had a warm spell. For instance, we just had that really warm week. So for a few weeks, I put in at Second Creek a lot, and most of the time we'll scan this area from the mouth of the lake down for bait. And with the weather being as cold as it has been, we just have not found much bait there until recently. In my last trip on Saturday morning, I was catching decent sized gizzard shad, probably from the bridge to 200 or 300 yards out. Now they weren't thick, but they were showing up. So, you know, as the weather warms up, these fish are gonna come out of this deep water, and they're gonna start heading up the creeks, kind of like they do every year. They're gonna head up into the creeks. They're gonna start looking for warmer water, just depending on, again, what the weather does. So springtime, and it can be tricky because things can be really scattered. Weather's up and down, temperatures are up and down, but generally once the weather starts trending towards warmer temperatures, these shad are going to start to head towards some of the creeks, some of the big coves, some of the big pockets. You're still going to be able to find bait at bridges. Bridges are one of the areas, if you can't find them anywhere else, maybe you don't know how to use your electronics, maybe you're new to the lake, that's one place to always go and look and see if there's some bait there, is bridges. So the springtime pattern, again, weather dependent, but a lot of times you'll find the bait will move out of this deeper water and start to be a little bit more scattered. It could be staged up at the creek mouths, you know, abbots, seconds, crane. Again, it's just going to be dependent on weather, right? So wintertime, we're focusing deep. If we have a cold winter, we're going to look at bridges. Springtime, that bait's moving. It's going to start to look into the creeks for warmer water, and they're going to kind of start their pre-spawn activities too, right? So that should cover some springtime movements. So now, I believe probably one of the easier times to catch bait is probably summertime. So for anybody who may be familiar with High Rock Lake and maybe not familiar with High Rock Lake gets a really bad thermocline in the summer months. So let's just say like end of May through, let's just say end of September. Again, just depending on weather. A big section of this lake is not even going to be sustainable for fish. We get thermoclines that go 12 foot deep, so that helps eliminate a lot of area you need to look for bait. Me personally, in the summertime, I like to get my bait before daylight. I find it's easier. The shad really push up into the shallower water at daylight or before daylight. Again, so my typical pattern, you know, when I put in at Second Creek, anywhere from the flats all the way down here, if there's enough water to get there, around the bridge. And then what I really key in and focus on are these coves right here. These long coves right here, particularly that have some kind of creek. If you look right here, some type of creek feeding them right in here. This is a good place. This can be a good place. And again, this is before the sun comes out. For me personally, I feel it's 10 times easier to get my bait in the summertime. I get there early enough before the sun comes out, and it typically will stay bunched up. So any nice big cove in a major creek can be a good place. Back here in Sailboat Cove, this can be another productive place in the summertime. And don't be scared to go back super shallow. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, man. There's times I'm catching bait and I'm back and my sonar's not even gonna find them. It's not even gonna show them. It's so shallow. So don't be afraid to, you know, you get back 5 foot and you're not catching them. Don't be afraid to keep going back further, because that's probably where they're at. I'll show you another good place in the summertime I like to go. Is back up here into Swearing. If you come all the way back up into Swearing, go up under the bridge, and that bridge can hold some good bait. But I like to come all the way back up here. All the way back. This is a big shallow flat back in here. You're probably never going to mark them on your sonar or side scan, but this is another productive place in the summertime. Just a huge flat, anywhere from 5 foot to 3 foot. Not much structure, not much variations in anything, but you can go up there a lot of times and throw one time and be done. So again, another place I like to look for. But really, any of these major creeks, in the coves and the pockets, and you'll start to learn to pattern these baits. And again, I'm primarily talking shad, you know, crappie, carp. Those are good baits as well. You'll start. Matter of fact, right now, you're starting to notice that there's a lot of carp moving up into the flats. And they're kind of starting their pre-spawn ritual, which normally happens every February. You'll start seeing them splashing up on top of the water. You'll start seeing some big arches on your graphs up here, and those guys will hang out here. They'll start moving up into the river. Don't forget, catfish don't just eat shad, so keep that in mind when you're looking. One more thing on a note for summertime is, and this is probably more for white perch than anything, but if you look out here on these little humps right here, there's some humps out here outside of Sailboat Cove. Right there can tend to be a good spot for white perch in the summertime. Same off this little point right here could be a good spot. And then also there's other couple humps right here. These humps down through here can also hold white perch, which is another form of summertime bait. Just something else to consider for summertime fishing. All right, so we've covered kind of what I look for in winter, kind of what I look for in spring, and then again, kind of what we're looking for in the summertime pattern. And I will also say you can get up here into the river, and the river will hold good shad. If you can get back in some of these shallower pockets back in here, you know, you can get in here and find some good cutters back in some of these shallow pockets. You just got to be careful, don't tear your gear up. Let's see, so now we've covered summer, thermocline, and for those of y'all that don't know what a thermocline is, basically you're going to get an area in this lake that has the perfect combination of cold water and well oxygenated water. And that will actually show up on your graph as a fine line at a particular depth. And also, something you'll notice will be that most of your fish in the lake at that given time are going to be at a certain depth or shallower. There may be a few fish below, but it's not sustainable. So keep that in mind when you're out looking. If you're trying to catch shad in 25 foot deep, in the summertime, the reality is they're probably not going to be there. They're going to be pushed up in shallower water, or they might be staged up on the thermocline depending on what's going on. All right, so we got summertime covered. We got fall covered. Fall is going to be a lot like your springtime pattern. So these fish are going to, as the water temperature starts to cool, there's going to be a migration of fish are going to start to come back out of the rivers, and bait's going to start pushing back into the creeks in the fall, and the fish are going to be right behind them. So a lot of your springtime pattern is going to mimic your fall pattern. And I'll be honest with you, this past year, I caught bait from, let's just say, March until the second week in December. About every bait trip for me, I caught almost all my shad were in this cove right here. They stayed here most of the year until we had that first real cold snap. And it don't go there after it gets super cold thinking bait's gonna stick around. They were gone. So just kind of remember what we talked about for the wintertime pattern. But that bait went from the deep area, you know, in the main lake, and they started feeding into the creeks, and that bait just kind of stayed staged up in here through most of the fall before it got cold, and then they transitioned back down. So that's just a generalized kind of what I look for bait. It's just something to go off of. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like odd things don't happen. Like I said, I have caught bait in the very back of Flat Swamp in December in 3 foot of water. Now it was mild, but it was back there. And so forth. I have caught bait in the back of Swearing Creek in December. Just depends on what's going on. I have caught bait up in the river in the cold months, just depending on what's going on. So as far as the bait goes, another tip I would give y'all that are trying to learn this is you got to keep a log of what's going on. All your successes and all your failures, and really do that for a few years to help you pattern what these fish do in any given year. So this is the coldest it's been in 5 years. So that's why, I mean, just about all the bait in the lake for the most part was stacked up down here. And it was still there on Saturday morning when I went to go catch bait. But also was catching bait back down in Second Creek. And it's just so much dependent on what's going on in the weather and learning to pattern fish. Because they're not always going to be in the places that I just showed you. But it gives you an idea of the movement. And that's the whole point of this video, is to try and teach what they're doing at a certain given time and maybe what might influence it. Another note, just talking about bait, that I was going to tell y'all is, for me personally, I typically will get out by 3:30, 4 o'clock before a trip, and I catch my bait while it's dark. Bait will tend to be shallower. For example, Saturday morning at 4 a.m., I was down here in this general area at 4 a.m. and all this bait from here to down here was about 10 foot thick, suspended from the top of the water column down 10 foot over 35, 40 foot of water. Now, after my trip, I had another trip on Sunday, I came back down, and the majority of this bait was stacked up 10 foot deep, 10 foot thick, I should say, hugged all the way to the bottom in the same area. So the bait was there, and it stayed there all day, but that flip from nighttime to daytime almost always, except for the summertime, will push those shad to want to move a little bit deeper. But even though that water gets cold in the wintertime, those fish will still push up in the water column at night. So it just makes it a little easier to catch them. For example, this cove back here that I was showing you guys, back down here in Second Creek, if I come here, let's just say March through, I don't know, let's just say September. If I come here from the, and sometimes it'll be all the way here in the back, sometimes it'll be in the mouth. It just depends on what they're feeling. But one thing is guaranteed, and this is just this whole year, this past year, is once daylight comes up, all these bait that were back here in this shallow cove are going to push out. And they're either going to push deep, or they're going to go hold tight to structure. And then it's like clockwork. You come back in the morning, if I have a trip, and normally 1 or 2 throws, and I got enough bait, because their pattern is to push up into shallower water at night to feed. The plankton that they eat tends to want to rise to the top, and the fish rise to the top. So for me, I find it 10 times easier to catch my bait before the sun comes out in the morning. But that's just me. You can get it during the day too. That's just my experience. So, well, that's just a quick overview of kind of what I look for at certain times of the year catching bait on High Rock Lake. I throw a 10-foot net, Fish and Fuel 10-foot net, 5/8 inch mesh with 1.5 pounds of lead. Typically year round. Now the tape net definitely comes in handy when we're trying to catch bait out here in deeper water. So, and just the other couple tidbits for me. I try to put more emphasis on learning to read my sonar. Gizzard time. Right here. And knowing I'm in a good area to throw my net, so I don't have to throw it a million times. You know what I mean? So take the time to understand what you're seeing on your sonar in certain times of the year. In the summer months, you just have to know that those shad will push shallow. Really, you get back in a quiet area, if you got a spotlight, flip it on. Almost always before it gets light out, you'll see them flipping. You'll see them flipping during the day too, but I just find their activity is more in the early morning hours before the sun comes up. So anyway, that's what I do to catch bait, and I'm sure that there's 20 other people who do it a different way. But I just kind of want to get on here and cover some of what I look for and how I pattern bait at given times of the year, because the reality is, I try to catch fresh bait before every one of my trips the day of. I think it adds to the success of your fishing trip, to be honest with you. So hope that helps some of you guys and girls. If you got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer anything. And appreciate y'all watching. Have a good one. Bye.